All right, let's hear from Jake. It's the green meanie. Got the film review. That's fun. Chicago style. That's fun. Bibliography, very good. Don't come any further forward than the head of that green box. You can take a half step back if you would, please. Yeah, that works. And we are rolling on Halloween, October 31st, 2017. Where the sunshine is not shining in Los Angeles. In fact, it just rained. Praise the Lord. And we're about to hear about a film that really moved Jake in 3 ways. He's going to share that with us now. Do I have a timer? Yes, sir. Great. So, rock and roll, Jake.
Hi everyone, I'm Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Ohana means family. Family means no one gets left behind. This is a quote from one of my favorite films, Lilo and Stitch. Lilo and Stitch deals with the importance of family, acceptance, and love.
Thesis.
This film moved me as it made me feel frustrated, it made me feel brave, and it made me feel happy. This film made me feel frustrated when Lilo and Nani were being visited by a social worker, and they weren't prepared for the meeting. At the meeting, they had nails all over the house, dirty dishes, and they got into a huge fight. And the social worker was led to believe that Nani beats Lilo 5 times a day. So they both were very frustrated at one another because they wanted to stay together as a family. But due to their lack of communication, they had to suffer the consequences and get a bad punishment from the social worker. It would take Lilo from them in 3 days. Lilo from Nani in 3 days. This made me feel frustrated as I remembered a time when I was having a miscommunication with my sister when we were going to pick up a Mother's Day present for my mom. We were trying to get her flowers, and I had ordered them in the morning, and she was going to get them after school. And after school, she thought I was getting them, and no one got the flowers. So we were both pretty mad at each other when we met up for dinner because we didn't want to let my mom down, and we were just like frustrated at one another. But from frustration, can get better emotions. So after the frustrating part of family making mistakes, there was some bravery shown by Stitch, who's the intergalactic creature who gets adopted by this family of orphans. Stitch decides to hop in the water and surf, even though he knows that if he gets in the water, he'll die, as that's the one thing that can kill Stitch. But he wants to make a connection with his family, Lilo and Nani, so he decides to get on the surfboard and go risk it and have a good time to make a better connection and bond with his family. This reminded me of the time when I was scuba diving in Hawaii at Maunakali Crater, and we were driven out on a boat an hour to this crater, and then once we got there we had to jump in the deep ocean. I'd never been in the ocean before, like deep. I'd always just been by the shore, so I was pretty scared to jump in. Everyone else jumped in first, and they were all encouraging me, my family and friends. So eventually I decided to jump in. It ended up being a great time. as I got in the deep ocean and saw all these coral and like exotic fish below. So I was really glad I did it, and I felt brave for jumping in this deep water at a young age when that was my biggest fear. This film also made me feel happy. It made me feel happy when Stitch decides that anywhere in the universe he could be, he'd like to stay with the two people who cared and accepted him the most, Lilo and Nani. He decides to stay with them instead of going back to exile where he would most likely escape. And this made me feel happy as well, because I remembered a time when I went to my sister's birthday party when I could have gone skiing with some friends in Lake Tahoe. I thought going to Lake Tahoe would be fun for the weekend, and that my sister wouldn't think it was a big deal if I missed her party, but she told me she wanted me to stay. So I decided to stay and help her out at her barbecue. We played some soccer, grilled some chicken, and had a great time. I was so happy I stayed because I saw the look on my sister's face, and she smiled and looked at me when I gave her a present. So it made me very happy that I chose to stay with my family instead of leave. So this film definitely moved me in many ways. It made me feel frustrated, it made me feel brave, and it made me feel happy. This film teaches you the importance of family, love, and acceptance, and it's a great message and a great film. Thank you.
Where did we start Thursday? There or here? Oh, I guess it'd be your turn.
Sydney.
Hi, Sydney.
You can tell that you prepared for this speech and you were very conscious that the movement and you were supposed to be doing a walk in costume, so that was good. And I think you tried really hard to make eye contact with both sides of the room, like the four in the middle. And I really liked the topic of the speech.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sydney. Improvement?
Hi, my name's Patricia.
Hi, Patricia.
You were fairly monotone throughout the whole speech. If you could vary your rate and pitch, it would be better, more engaging.
Okay.
Right, it was a good speech. Have you been told you're monotone before?
No,
Or no?
I've never really given speeches.
You what?
I've never given a speech.
Never given a speech. Okay, great. Well, when you watch yourself tonight on YouTube, you'll see that you were very monotone. It's almost as if you seem like you were bored giving the speech. And you want to have some enthusiasm, and even if you have to fake it, and have some vocal variety. Speak faster, speak slower, speak louder, speak softer, so you're more interesting to listen to, because what Patricia's sort of getting at is a monotone can lull your audience to sleep, and you don't want to do that, do you? You want to be effective. You want your speech to be sticky. So you started with Ohana means family, and I was looking for a tie back to that phrase, and I saw that you did have a tie back that said it, but I didn't hear it come out of your mouth. And so we want to have all 7 parts, okay? So that's important. On your thesis preview, it's important you did say the name of the movie, but really blast it out. Lilo and Stitch, and your feelings: frustrated, brave, and happy. That's your narrative, so you've set a tone for where you're going and what you're going to be talking about. Next, we ask that you present a film review, and
Yeah, I had that in there.
yes, you did, a very nice one from the New York Times from A.O. Scott. Unfortunately, you didn't present it to the group, so one of the things you'll need to do, Jake, when you practice is with a live person and not just a mirror, is if you skip a part, have them tell you that, and make sure you go over all the parts in the speech, all 7 of the parts, and when you rehearse it aloud, say the different 7 parts in the speech and what you're supposed to do with each one. It's important, a significant statement not only presents the quote, the review of the movie, but it sells the audience on the significance of your topic. And I don't think that's much of a sell to sell the idea of family to most people in here, right? Yeah. On your first emotion, by the way, what was the time?
I was 5:07.
5:07. Very good. So you came in within the parameters of the time, so that was good. You talked first about being frustrated, and I thought your plot summary was a tad long, but you told us the story of having a crossed communication with your sister about getting flowers for your mother on Mother's Day, and the bottom line was there were no flowers for Mother on Mother's Day, and you were sort of frustrated at this because you were sure that she was going to do it and she was sure you were going to do it, and that's why you felt frustrated. Remember to pivot and return to that emotion at the end of your speaking, and that's why I felt frustrated. But besides frustrated, the movie also made me feel brave. See, you want to do the pivot in there. On the brave, you told us the story of scuba diving at Lochkinny crater in the middle of the ocean, whereas before you had always scuba dived near the shore. And you were told us you were afraid to scuba dive out that far, but finally you overcame your fear, jumped in, and it went well, and you had a marvelous time seeing the sights under the ocean at that crater. And you sort of ended up with, and that's why I felt brave, but you need to say, but besides brave, pivot, I also felt happy. So your narrative of what you're communicating comes out a little more strongly, see? So unhappy, you told us that you did a very selfless thing. Your younger sister or older sister? Younger sister. You wanted to go to Squaw Valley and ski with your friends, but your younger sister said she'd like you to be home for her birthday. And you at first thought, no big deal, but you then saw that it was a big deal for her, and so you stayed home. And you saw how happy she was that you were there and how happy she was to get the gift from you. And that in turn made you happy. That was your best emotion of felt sensing and remembering that experience. Your summary was good. You talked about frustrated, brave, and happy. The conclusion of all the stuff you said there, the bottom line is the conclusion always has to be there should be no doubt in this room that this film, and say the name of it, really did move me. That's your conclusion. And then tie back to, and when I started with this, Ohana means family. Family means nobody gets left behind. And I think now that you've heard about this film, you know that this is very true in the film's case, in my case as well. Something like that. Okay?
So just repeat the quote, like word for word at the end.
and then do something fancy or funny to show that you're ending it out. That's how you do a creative tie-back. But nice job. Big thing I'd like to see is one of your kanais. And did you have kanais here?
No, I didn't.
Oh,
give
no
the
kanais.
first speech.
What?
I didn't give the first speech.
You didn't get the prompt?
No, I never had the chance.
Do you have the prompt now for
Yeah.
all three?
Yeah.
So you saw that. By the way, folks, these that are left, if you don't have 3 kanais written on your paper, write them in now. So you have 3 goals that you set for yourself. Well, roughly speaking, what were you hoping to achieve, Jake?
I was hoping to achieve good eye contact.
Uh-huh.
Like a certain 3 spots to walk.
3 spots. Okay, good.
And then I was trying to just memorize, or like,
Know the speech.
yeah, just know the speech.
Great. Okay, well, let's talk about each one of those. I thought your eye contact was pretty good. You're looking to get 3 to 5 seconds of eye contact. When you're over in this side or over in that side, you work that side of the room, still glancing at that side so you don't blow them off. It's a small thing, but walk on your major points. You walked on your early. And so walk on your major points, like the first way the film moving, the second way the film moving, the third way back to center. And your final point, I thought, was pretty well done. So you did a good job overall. Just work on that vocal variety, okay? Is one of your kanais next time. Thank you,
Got it.
Jake. Okay. Yeah.
There's still a bunch of C's that have yet to go.
Yeah, well, we'll see if we get to them. See? Blah, 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 blah. Let me hear from. Aaron. Aaron, is Aaron in the house?
Yeah.
Good. Let's move her up here, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm a D, and there's so much. I thought we were gonna do a C first. I was a D.
You thought wrong.
Okay.
Okay, Aaron, take a step forward. You look like you're afraid of the audience being that far back. Okay. Yeah, half step that way. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, Aaron stands before you, managing attention, communicating respect, finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
Hi guys, I'm Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
Growing hurts. That's why they call it growing pains. And today I'm going to talk to you about a movie called Inside Out, which, as the New York Times put it very nicely, is a film about the trials and tribulations of growing up and the complexity of a developing brain. Now, this film made me feel a lot of things, but the 3 most pertinent ones which I'd like to share with you today is that it made me feel nostalgic, it made me feel empathetic, and it made me feel very introspective. So I'd like to start by discussing the feelings of nostalgia. So in the movie, Riley, the main character, an 11-year-old girl, moves across the country, and it's a very traumatic experience for her. this reminded me of the time when I was in elementary school, and I went through a move as well. Granted, I wasn't moving across the country, I was moving across the street. It was still really hard for me. Just being a little kid, I remember the last night driving away from the old house, looking back at it through the windows of the car, and just feeling a lot of emotion. I remember thinking that all the games of hide and seek, those would be different. All the Christmas mornings running down and waking my parents up to check the presents under the tree, those would be different. Everything would be different. Granted, a lot of the things would still be there. It just, as a little kid, that's just a really hard concept to deal with, and it's something that I struggled with. And I just remember sitting in the new house on the first night there, and I was just crying for no real reason. In retrospect, there's nothing really to be sad about. It's a part of life, but that is the most pervasive feeling that came to surface when I watched the movie and witnessed Riley going through all of the troubles and all of the hard times that she had. So the next thing that I'd like to talk about is how, when I watched this movie, I felt a sense of empathy. In the movie, Riley wants nothing more than to be happy at many points. However, due to changes going on in her brain, the functionality that controls joy is kind of absent, and so she tries with all of her might to be happy and to convey that, but she just can't. And so the result is that she appears frustrated, she appears angry, she just isn't able to communicate. And I've had many of my very close friends who have gone through similar things. Some have gone through depression, others have just gone through extended bouts of anxiety. And watching this film really made me reflect and connect with those friends, because I understood on a deeper level, or I felt a lot closer to them when I realized that it's not for lack of trying, it's not that they don't want to be happy, it's not that they don't want to be friends or personable to everybody they meet, but a lot of times chemical reactions, situational things at home just make it impossible. And so the best you can do is empathize and realize that they're doing their best, and eventually, if you're always there and supporting them, they'll get through it. Now, the last feeling that I really want to talk about today is how I felt introspective when I watched this movie. And that was most pertinent when I saw Riley's emotions and her feelings start to affect her past memories. In the movie, one of her core memories that she really called upon when she was looking for a source of happiness got tainted by sadness. And the movie does a great job of depicting it, where the memory is an orb and sadness touches it and it becomes blue. Now, thinking back and thinking upon times in my life that I view very fondly and times in my life that I view not so fondly, it really made me think that perhaps a lot of those feelings and the reason why I felt that way had nothing to do with the objective goodness or the objective happiness that was present at the moment, but rather how I personally was feeling in my own way. And that is very powerful, because it means that you have control over that. You have control over your memories. If there's something that you're unhappy with about your own past, then you can sort of pick apart the parts that you don't like and maybe discard them, or choose to build up the parts that you do. And that can lead you to have a more well-rounded and more happy worldview about yourself and about everybody around you. So, to tie things back, I've talked about how this film made me feel nostalgic, how this film made me feel empathetic, and how this film made me feel introspective. I mentioned in the beginning that growing hurts, and that's why they call it growing pains. But what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and if we all work together and support each other, we can come out of it stronger, and we can come out of it better, and we can live better lives because of it. Thank you.
Okay. What'd you like?
Hello class, my name is Donis.
Hey, Thomas.
Your speech was very cool, very good. It seemed like you really resonated with the film, and you walked throughout the side of the room. There's nothing wrong with the speech.
Nothing wrong with the speech. Improvement?
I'm Tina.
Hi, Tina.
I thought your speech was really good, but the only thing was that you were like kind of playing with your zipper, and that was a little bit distracting. And that's it, yeah.
Okay, that's good. You'll notice that tonight on YouTube. Aaron, well, this was a great film. I wish you had identified who said growth hurts. You had it here. It helps the credibility of a quote to identify the source of it. And you said he's a critically acclaimed motivational speaker, Tony Gaskin. So do identify the source of your quotes, folks. It really helps build the credibility of your source. Inside Out, yes, a remarkable film, really. And you talked about 3 ways that it moved you. It moved you to be nostalgic, empathetic, and introspective. Okay? On the significance statement, we didn't get a lot of time on that, about how it deals with significant themes like the difficulty of growing up and the emotional thing right after the thesis, before you went into the main body. So remember to have all the 7 parts in order and sell it a little to the audience. Okay? Aaron, on your first feeling that you tried to communicate, the nostalgia, I thought this was your best felt sensing when you remembered how really sad you felt, and you described it rather articulately about having the hide and go seek, the Christmas trees, the old friends, etc. And you got an emotional connection there with me, and I thought that was well done. My only concern, and if you would, all of you, I would hope, would listen to the critique of other people and incorporate them into your presentation so you don't make the same mistakes that others made, is to return to the emotion at the end and do a pivot, so we really know what that emotion was. And you want to end by saying, that's why I felt so nostalgic. But besides nostalgic, I also felt empathetic. And that helps draw out your, the main points that you're trying to emphasize, your narrative on empathy. Here you said that you suddenly, after seeing this film, realized that many of your friends were acting the way people in the movie acted, and you suddenly had more insight into them, and you felt more empathetic for their inability to express their emotions, and that was pretty good. But once again, that's why I felt empathetic. But besides empathetic, I also felt introspective with your voice. On introspective, I thought it could have been a little more emotion-laden. I thought it was pretty heady. I thought you were sort of describing sort of intellectually how you were more introspective than describing some emotions and remembering some emotions that came out of this. And after all, we're trying to make an emotional connection with your audience. When someone goes off and sort of intellectualizes about something, they're less likely to make an emotional connection. Your summary was excellent. Your conclusion needs to say, as I've said others, that there should be no doubt in this room, your central thesis repeated again, that the film really did move me, and say the name of it, and then you tied back nicely to growth hurts. That which does not kill us only makes us stronger. Let's talk about your canines. You said move with purpose, stay relaxed and composed, maintain a strong, natural, conventional, conversational speech with the audience, and establish credibility. How'd it go?
I think I did a good job of moving with purpose. Last time you made a comment that from the get, the first word I said, I started moving instantly.
Right.
And it was a little distracting.
Right.
So today I was very conscious of that, and I
Right.
tried to make sure to get through my introduction and start moving only at the body.
Good.
With the conversational, I also think I did a better job. I didn't get any comments on it last time, but I felt personally that after giving my respect speech that I was talking a little bit fast. So today I
Slow
tried,
down, yeah.
I tried to moderate and use speed at certain times and slow it down at others. So I thought I did a good job of that. With the
Speaking of that, excuse me for interrupting. Can you just yell out the time when you're
Yeah, 5:22.
5:22? So you were within the parameters. And go ahead now.
so with the last, the established credibility,
Yeah.
I think that's done just as a combination of having a well-connected speech, and
Right.
based on the feedback you've given me, I think that I did an all right job, but there's still room for improvement.
Yeah. Yeah. When I tell the students the main purpose of a speech is to establish an emotional connection with the audience, that's what you want to go for 100%. Just like in the next speech, I'm going to say to you the purpose of the PC is to be authentic. I want to believe every word that comes out of your mouth is authentic. So go for authentic in the next one. And here I thought your emotional connection was strong, pretty strong, and then not so strong on the third one. Just my opinion. But it was overall a good job and an improvement over your respect speech. So thank you for that. Okay, it's time to hear from Bailey. Hi, Bailey.
Hello.
Loose paper there.
That's the film review.
This is your film review. Okay, good. You use the old green meanie. Uh-oh, she's texting. Put away that evil phone. Okay. Bailey, stand. Oh, you're a little taller, aren't you? Did you take a step back? Yeah, that's better. Thank you, Bailey. Bailey stands before us, managing attention, communicating respect non-verbally, finding friendly eyes near the front and the center. Say your name, feel the love. Start your speech.
Bailey.
Hi, Bailey.
Imagine an average American metropolis filled with the different races, socioeconomic groups. Now replace all the humans in it and put animals in it instead. From Tundra Town to Sahara Square, these are just the different places that the animals live in, just like Los Feliz and Westwood in Los Angeles. Today I'm going to talk to you about a movie that really moved me. It's Disney's Zootopia. The film moved me in 3 ways. It made me frustrated, sad, and it reminded me of past feelings of betrayal. As Richie DiMaria said about the film, it's joyfully wonderful, and I don't remember the quote.
Vibrant, mature, computer animated, as menageries can get. Okay, we get the idea.
Okay.
And do you agree or disagree with it?
I agree with the quote because I really enjoyed watching the movie. It gave me a lot of emotions, and I just really had a good time watching it. So the first way the film made me feel was it made me feel frustrated. And it made me feel frustrated because in the film, Judy Hopps, she's like the bunny, and she's like she wants to be a cop, and she has to find where this car is, and to like try to find out where the missing otter is, and she blackmails this sneaky fox named Nick Wilde into helping her run a license plate so she knows where the car is, and Nick takes her to the DMV, and they walk into the DMV, and it's all run by a bunch of sloths. And I like the symbolism where they go over the stereotype of the typical DMV worker, where they're really slow, don't really help that much, kind of take forever, and it ends up taking them 6 hours to run the plate, and she's run out of time, the day's over. And this reminded me of the time I went to the DMV to get my learner's permit. I arrived 15 minutes early, and I was only expecting it to be like a 5-10 minute wait because I had a reservation. And then I ended up waiting 2.5 hours, just sitting there with nothing to do. And finally, when they called my name, I went up and took the test. It took me 10 minutes. So I was really frustrated that I had to wait 2 hours just to do something that was only going to take me 10 minutes. Another way the film moved me was it made me feel really sad because in one part of the movie at the very beginning, this fox, the red fox named Gideon Gray, bullies Judy and pushes her to the ground and calls her a dumb bunny. It says she's never going to be anything more than a carrot farmer because she's a bunny. And this reminded me of a time in elementary school when the kids in my school, they'd bully me because I had a bowl cut. They'd call me a bowl cut Bailey. And so that nickname stuck for a few years in elementary school before I finally convinced my mom to let me get a different haircut. Finally buzzed it all off, got rid of that. Never want to go back to that stage. And it reminded me of that experience, so it made me feel really sad. The last way the movie made me feel was it reminded me of a past feeling of betrayal. And the instance of the movie that made me feel this way was when this fox named Nick Wilde, I talked about him earlier, he convinced Judy to buy him an elephant popsicle by telling her that it was his son's birthday and that he had forgotten his wallet at home. The elephant running the stand wasn't going to sell it to him, and Judy had to kind of figure out how to get the elephant to sell it to him. And then when he got the popsicle, Judy thought she had done a really nice thing because she thought she had bought a popsicle for a little kid on his birthday. That's all he wanted for his birthday. And then she caught Nick and the little kid melting the popsicle later and turning it into a bunch of little mini popsicles that they ended up selling for $2 each to mice. And the kid was actually an adult also. And this reminded me of when I went to 7-Eleven with my brother. So when I was a kid, I wasn't really allowed to eat candy, but every once in a while my mom would let me and my brother walk to 7-Eleven to get Slurpees. And one time when we went, we decided we were going to get some candy also. My brother told me he didn't have enough money for anything besides the Slurpee, so he begged me to buy him some candy. And I did it because I was like, man, like he's not going to get any candy. I felt bad, so I bought him some candy. He told me he was going to pay me back. And then later that month, I walked into his room and I saw like some money sitting there. So I was like, oh, like you still owe me money for the candy I bought you. Like, will you pay me back? And he just denied any knowledge of knowing that I paid for his candy. He just completely denied it. And it made me feel really betrayed because he's supposed to be my brother. He's supposed to always be there for me. And he wasn't there in that instance. In summary, this movie made me feel three different emotions. It made me feel sad because of, or it made me feel frustrated because of my experience with the DMV, sad because I was bullied as a kid, and betrayed because my brother didn't pay me back for the candy I bought him. Overall, I thought it was a really good movie, and I definitely agree with Richie DiMaria's quote that it was a wonderfully joyful movie. It made me feel really good afterwards, even though my emotions that I felt aren't considered to be positive emotions. I felt warm inside after watching the movie. Thank you.
Hey, my name's Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
I liked your speech. I connected with all of your stories because I've had similar experiences. If I had to give you some feedback, I would say you were kind of moving side to side a little bit, which could be a little distracting. Once you got into a rhythm and found your speech, it became a lot more natural.
Improvement.
I'm Sydney.
Hi, Sydney.
In the beginning, you used filler words a lot, but it got better as the speech progressed, and like you said, the swaying. But
Yeah.
overall, it was good.
Can you move over that way just a touch? When you watch yourself tonight on YouTube, you'll see that you're swaying a great deal, so make the power stance a little wider and lock your knees so you can't sway so much. It is distracting. I liked your speech. It was good-natured. You did present good connections to your life. I liked some of the cute phrases that you presented. Let me give you some feedback of how it could be improved. You started with an intro that you pictured scenes from the movie. And you pictured Tundra Town and Little Rontina and Beverly Hills and Los Feliz, etc., etc. I didn't get much of a tie back to your intro, okay? And in fact, the only thing I got in Roman numeral 7, you didn't even put in the word tie back, and I really would recommend for your future film outlines you put in the words of what you're supposed to be doing with each of the 7 parts of the outline. I think this will help you not forget to do it. So you just said, I enjoyed the movie. That wasn't a tie back, okay?
Okay.
So your thesis preview, excellent. Your quote, which I helped you with a little bit, was okay. Just work on going over it a few more times and remember to agree or disagree with it. That's part of the deal we had. Your Chicago style footnote was good and correct. What was the time?
Oh, he just stepped out for a second, so he'll tell you.
Okay, he'll tell me when we come back, so it's a mystery. I thought the plot summaries were a tad long. We didn't quite need all the details you gave. So I would have rather you spent time on reliving your emotions and telling your stories and puffed those parts up and spent less time on plot summaries. You did it a little better on the second and third one, but you gave us a long plot summary on the first one. So your first emotion was frustration, and you used the DMV, which has frustrated us all, and you returned to the word frustration in the end, which I liked. You didn't pivot, as I asked people to do, right? Which is, besides frustrated, I also felt sad, so you have a working transition that way, see, between 2 and 3, and 1 and 2, and 2 and 3. On sad, I love 538. Okay, so you went over a bit. So plot summaries were a place you could have cut. Okay, so time yourself. On your second reason, you were sad because you were bullied, because your mother gave you the bowl cut for your haircut, and you were known as Bowl Cut Bailey, which I thought was a great phrase, and but it probably wasn't funny at the time, and it probably made you pretty sad. I would have liked you to have talked a little bit more about your sadness, refelt it, sense it, so we feel it too. That's how you make an emotional connection with your audience, Bailey. Again, pivot. Besides sad, I also felt betrayed. Pretty long summary of the popsicle and all that stuff. We didn't need it. Basically, you told us your brother is, a rude dude, and he, basically ripped you off, and you didn't have much recourse because you weren't supposed to be giving him money for candy anyway, so you really couldn't go to the police or your parents. So he sort of had you over a barrel, but, you did feel betrayed, and that came through. And just remember to say the word as often as you can when you're communicating. Remember to feel how betrayed you felt. Re-feel it so we feel it also. Your summary I liked because it wasn't just past, present, future, or it wasn't just frustrated, sad, and betrayed, but you gave us a memory of the incident too, and so that was excellent. The conclusion, you've heard me say to others, there should be no doubt in this room, and you wrote it, but you didn't say it, and no tie back. You're connies. 3 things I can improve on is use fewer filler words, act confident, and use more hand gestures. How'd it go?
I didn't really. I used a lot of filler words in the beginning, and then I tried to cut them down later, as it went on, and I felt more confident up here.
Good.
And I didn't really use that many hand gestures.
All right.
I had my hands a little bit, but not that much.
Okay, well, when you have these 3 canines and you practice with a live person, not a mirror, tell him or her, these are my goals, help me with them, and help me when I use these filler words. Raise your hand when I say or like or and you will gradually lose these transitions. Thank you very much, Bailey. Okay, I think we have one more D. Crystal. Crystal Blue Persuasion. Now we have 2 more. Crystal Blue Persuasion. Is she in the house? Come on down. On deck, Adonis. Is that too loud? Do we need to shut the back door? Do we need to shut the back door? Okay, thank you, sir. What is that, a rock band?
Sounds like a band.
Oh, it's a movie?
Yes.
Does that help?
Yeah, let's go find out.
Go find out, yeah. Okay, Crystal Blue Persuasion stands before us. Managing attention, communicating respect, finding friendly eyes, feel the front and the center, say your name, feel the love, start your speech.
Hi, I'm Crystal.
Hi, Crystal.
Every time I seen you fight, you climbed in there alone. Every time you bled your blood. When you sat down on that stool,
Felt like
and
death.
you felt like dying. You felt like death.
Couldn't get up, but you got up.
And you felt like you couldn't get up, but you got up. It was you. This is a quote from a film from the film Southpaw. Southpaw is a film that truly moved me. It made me feel sad, it made me feel angry, and it made me feel hopeful in the end. So, Mary Tolles from Time Magazine said that Southpaw is a foreshadow machine, but it works movingly because Fuqua's
tempers a melodrama by trusting his actors. That's the essence of the play.
I agree, because I do think that it is a little bit cliche and predictable at times, but also I feel like the characters or the actors really are embedded in their roles and make the film a lot more believable. So the first way this film made me feel was sad. In the film, the event that made me feel sad was when Billy Hope, a successful boxer, is newly 43-0 after his latest fight. And although this is usually a time of like celebration and happiness, his celebration ends quickly when his wife is accidentally shot and killed after he has an altercation with another boxer at a charity event. So this made me feel sad because it reminded me of the time when I remembered that when my family and myself we found out that my cousin had passed away. And this was during the time when it was my senior year of high school, so it was the end of towards graduation. And usually I think we can agree that graduation is kind of like an exciting time because 4 years have just passed by and it's essentially a new start in our lives or a new chapter. So my parents had thrown me a small party for my graduation, and everybody was happy and everybody's giving me, congratulations and everything. And we had decided to continue the celebration the next day as more family would be coming into town. But then the next morning we find out that my cousin, who lived in Oregon, had passed away, and as you can imagine, the mood was definitely not celebratory anymore. So what I can remember the most is lying in my bed and thinking to myself how yesterday was such a happy day and today tragedy struck, and it was weird because it was like a turning point in mine and my family's life because of my graduating and then essentially going to college later on. So it was just, that's what made me feel sad. Another way this film made me feel was angry. So in the film, Billy Hope loses everything. He loses his career basically, and with that he loses his home and even sadly his daughter. So his daughter is taken by CPS and will stay with them until the judge sees that he is fit enough or that he can get his life together. So he tries to visit his daughter daily, but she's very angry that she's in the position that she's in. So she doesn't really want to talk to him most of the time. And this reminded me when my parents got a divorce and my dad also had, he was also trying to get his life together as well. So I remember when my dad would tell my brothers and I that he was going to pick us up for the weekend. So he would call us in the morning and he would say, I'm going to pick you up, say, around 5. So I would be outside at 5 waiting for him to come. And sometimes he was super, super late, or sometimes he didn't show up. So like Billy, my dad also had things to work on. But at the time I was super angry because I felt that it was such a simple job just to show up on time or to show up at all. So I was super angry at that, so it made me angry in the film. Lastly, the film made me feel hopeful. At the end, Billy is given another opportunity to fight and better his life for his daughter again. So he's able to fight with the man that he had an altercation with the night that his wife died, so it was kind of like a redemption thing. And this gave me hope because at the end he wins, and this summer I worked with kids who essentially live in like the homeless shelters or assistance housing, and they although they don't have much, and although you can tell that their lives have been rough, they actually have like a confidence to them, and you can tell. It made me feel hopeful because they're not. It feels like they're going to be able to find happiness and success regardless of what they've gone through. So in summary, I have described how this film made me feel sad, angry, and hopeful. There should be no doubt that it moved me because I was able to connect particular scenes to events in my life. So imagine it was you that had everything you could ever hope for, and then all of a sudden you lose everything. When tragedy strikes and you're forced to start all over, are you going to fight your way back to the top, or are you going to let life knock you out? Thank you.
Thank you. What'd you like? What'd you like?
Hi, I'm Tim.
Hi, Tim.
I think you did a good job with your speech. I thought you fumbled a couple words, but you pressed on through. And I thought you did good.
Okay. What improvement?
Like Tim said, you kind of fumbled a couple words around, and the beginning was kind of slow. You're trying to like remember what you said, and that's really it. I thought the rest was good.
Crystal, I like your speech. You have a nice presence about you. You suffered from not really knowing your speech solidly, and that caused you to be a little slower in your delivery, which is what caused you to go a little overtime, I'm guessing. What was the time?
6:03.
Not too bad, but a little overtime. That opening, every time you fight you bleed, but you still got up, and that first impression, is real important. So take extra time on that opening. Your thesis preview was fine. Your Time magazine quote, again, you want to simplify down the quote, to say it and be able to say it in your own words. Get the essence of the quote down as I sort of fed it to you. You did say you agreed with it, and but you thought there were some cliches in there, so that was good. Yeah, on the sad, you had your best felt sensing when you told us about your cousin passing away. I suppose it was too personal to say what the circumstances were, but I was curious about that because it's always curious when I'm assuming it was a young person that died. In my other class, someone said that their cousin died from a drive-by shooting. It was a very sad story, but it gave it a more, story-like quality. On your anger, your dad being a flake and not coming when he said he was going to, I could sense your anger. I want you to do a little better job of reliving it and not being afraid to express it, how angry you were at him. So we get that felt sense in him. If we feel your anger that you felt then when he didn't show up on time or not at all, then we will feel it too. On hopeful, and again I've repeated this to other people, but you can learn to pivot. And so sad and also anger, and from anger to hopeful, that's helps your narrative jump out even more. Hopeful, you had to hurry on this to not go over time so much, so it didn't get really fleshed out so much. Your summary in conclusion was fine. Say southpaw again in your conclusion. And your tie back was fine, so I like the ending, don't let life knock you out of it. Good, consistent with the southpaw story. So a nice job. Just next time really practice up to 6 times and know it cold so you can really come up and just knock it out. No pun intended. Thank you. Okay, let's hear from, and then we'll hear from Laura. Hi. You need the evil stapler? And
Yes,
there's
I do.
good, yeah. That green meanie comes in handy, doesn't it? Okay, rock and roll, sir. Just a warning. I'm near the twilight of the battery, so if I have to stop you, I apologize, but I think we can make it through at least your speech, so let's try.
Do I start?
Please start, sir. I'll look around the room for texting, put that evil phone away. What do I have to do? Confiscate them at the door? Okay, begin, sir.
Good morning. My name is Adonis.
Hi, Adonis.
So, can you imagine answering any question with just yes? Like any question posed to you, just answering yes, not even thinking about it? I don't really have to imagine that because there was a brief moment in my life where I did just answer yes, but it was kind of different. I just said, fuck it, sure, why not? Now, today the film I'm going to speak to you guys about is called Yes Man by Jim Carrey, and it's from 2008. And the way I would, this movie deals with some significant themes. It deals with reflecting on oneself's position in life momentarily, moving on and trying new things, and acceptance after trying to move on past certain obstacles. Now, this movie made me feel mad, happy, and glad. And the critic of this, a critic named A.O. Scott, says that this film's themes are kind of rudimentary because we kind of learn how to overcome these obstacles once we turn 5 years old. Now, the first way I like that this film made me feel was mad. The reason why this movie made me feel mad was in a particular scene where they're introducing Carl, who is portrayed by Jim Carrey, and any question that is answered, that is asked of him, he says no. He's walking through the film as he's walking through Blockbuster, and his friend calls him on the phone, and before his friend even finishes asking him the question, he just answers no. Now the reason this made me feel mad was because it reminded me of when I came to UCLA, because the day that I showed up here, I really didn't like it. Any question that anybody came up and asked me, I simply answered no. If they wanted to go out to eat, I said no. If they wanted to study, I said no. Simply because I didn't like this place. I decided to come over here because of a girlfriend that I followed. And I felt that it kind of resonated with the character because the reason why he was saying no was because he had been broken up with his girlfriend for 3 years and hadn't gone past it. Which brings me to my second point as to where the movie made me feel happy or glad. The reason why it made me feel happy was because after Carl attends some seminars and he learns to say yes, which is the whole point of the seminar, that any question that is asked him, he needs to say yes. He is asked to take this homeless man home. He says yes. He takes him to this weird park where his car breaks down and he's hating himself because he just answered yes. But once he goes to look for gas for his car, a girl shows up and gives him a ride, and he ends up falling in love with this girl. Now the reason why this made me feel happy was because it reminded me of how I met my girlfriend, which was around the time when I just started saying, fuck it, sure, why not? 20 questions were just posed to me. Now, I was at home and I was studying for tests when my friend asked me, hey, do you want to go to this party? It's at this random girl's house. Doesn't really matter what happens because this is a random girl's house. If we trash it, anything could go on. Now, I show up to this party and I'm sitting down just minding my own business, and this girl starts talking to me and she asks what I study. And I say I go to UCLA, and she asks me why I go here, and then she just straight tells me, you're stupid for going to that school, for deciding to go there following a girl. Now, a lot of people would take offense to it or something, but instead I ended up conversating with her for an additionally 9 hours. Because we ended up talking to 7 o'clock in the morning, and after that I just started seeing her every day for about a week. And that's the reason why it made me feel happy, because just like Carl had found the love of his life, I had found the love of mine. And the last feeling that this movie made me feel was glad. And it made me feel, the last part where it made me feel glad was when Carl actually finally learns to not say yes to everything, but to take his